Be the person who does what 99% of people won't. The uncomfortable work, the extra step, the follow-up no one asked for, the preparation no one sees. I love this. And clearly, you know about leadership, you know about building things and doing hard things.
That whole premises and that characteristic came from my mother. So my mother was a single mom. My dad had left, ran off with a young girl. He got her pregnant, and my mom was left. She was a housewife, and she was left with four children, no income. Literally, we had went with my grandparents for the weekend and came home, and he had even taken the furniture of the car. So we came to an empty place with four children, just our clothes on the floor. And my mom, fought to keep us kids. We were on welfare for a while, social services and, food stamps. And she fought her way back after a year and started a daycare and worked her way and became such an inspiration. And that was her motivation. She taught us kids, regardless what you're going through, if you will go the extra mile and do the 99% that no one wants to do, and never give up and never allow other people to dictate your success or tell you who you will always win. And she lived that for us, and she taught us that principle, and also just to have an attitude of gratitude, that no one owes you anything. And you have to make your own way. It's on you. Quit blaming other people. Quit saying it's because of your circumstances. I'm dyslexic, so growing up, I always had, got made fun of and was told I was dumb and all those different things. And I could have accepted that, or I could pick up and say, you know what, I'm going to have to work twice as hard, but I'm going to succeed. And this is how I'm going to do it. And so my mom was an incredible example of that principle. And we were taught that from a young age. And she always held her head high, even when we walked to school, walked to the grocery store. We didn't have a car. She did it with her head held high, and just the principle of you never quit. You can only lose if you quit.
hmm You start a company in the early 2000s, I believe it was 2004. It goes on to get pretty big and
Yes,
eventually get sold to a publicly traded company. Um, Tell us about that journey.
sure. So I was a single mom, my beautiful daughter Erin, and I'd went through a bad divorce, and all my friends and everybody's like, oh, you got to be careful because you don't want Erin to be a statistic. And I saw so many kids that were struggling in education because we do a lot of nonprofit work, my brother and I do, just because of how we were raised. And so I saw so many kids at school like suffering because their parents were not present, whether they were divorced, they lived with their grandparents because of addiction or a lot of different reasons. And I was like, man, I do not want my daughter to be a statistic. And I also wanted to be present for her life. Like there were moments that I got overlooked being a female because I, had to step away and go to programs or do different things or participate in her school functions. And I remember one time a boss telling me, Melissa, if you've got to leave for school, then we're never going to be able to promote you. And even though I was producing twice as much work, I was constantly being overlooked. And, I talk about it a lot when I do speeches, when people ask me to speak about, hey, if someone won't give you a seat at the table, go build your own dadgum table, right? Don't allow someone to mistreat you or refuse to reward you for your work. And so that was really the principle for GIACT. I just began to pray as a believer and to say, God, you know what? Like, I don't want my daughter to be a statistic, but I also know in order to impact her life, I got to be present. My mom was present as many hours as she worked. She was always present. We always sat at the table and had dinner together. And there was things that she always invested, even though she was tired and she would work late into the night after we went to bed. She knew that impacted and played a part in her life. And so I wanted to be present. And so it was really important. And so when the idea came up of GIACT, I went to Merlin and said, hey, I got this idea. And he said, great, go sell the first customer and I'll build it. And the rest is history. There was a lot of hard work that went into it, but it was a desire to be present in my daughter's life. And I knew in my current roles and circumstances that I was in that I wasn't going to be able to do that. So I went and created my own environment so that I could be present for our family. And Merlin and I, our greatest achievements are our children. And
Hmm.
now they are having their own children and they're beautiful and they're raising amazing children. And so I think that sometimes we forget as executives that our number one thing we should focus on is not the business sometimes, but it's about keeping our priorities straight. And when you keep your life in the right priorities and you put things in the right priorities, it drives success. It's when you get out of bounds and you quit focusing on the things that are most important, that's when your career suffers. And I think sometimes we think as executives that we got to go, be away from our family and travel and do this and do that. And sometimes the best thing we can do is just be still and be quiet and spend that time, invest in our family, and sometimes just be still. And that's hard sometimes in the world that's so fast moving and so much money and so much pressure. But I have found my greatest moments and achievements is when I focus more on my priorities, and
Hmm.
then the rest will fall in line.
Hmm. Well, GIACT went on to become a big company. There was a lot of people working there. Did you find yourself to be like a natural leader? It seems like you're probably able to establish very strong rapport with your team members.
Yeah. So again, just that attitude of gratitude. Um, when you treat other people the way you want to be treated, then it drives not only customer success but employee success. And someone asked me the other day, being a female CEO, what I think about DEI and some of the things that are rolling right now in the environment and the industry. And to me, it's not driving the outcome that people want. I don't believe that you can have any law that's going to force people to treat people right. It's a hard issue. And the one thing I will tell you, if you want to know the truth, I think it's actually driven more diversity because more people are angry because they're forced to do things that just as when they're already making the right decisions anyway, it feels like they're being punished. And there is overlooked people and groups of people that are completely overlooked that now are just being left out completely. My husband is Hispanic, and I have great friends that are from many different cultures, and some of them are just getting completely overlooked and left out in this whole world that we're in right now. It's really about treating people the way you want to be treated. I don't see color. I don't see, whether you're poor or rich. I don't care what your beliefs are, who you prefer to marriage. When you're in the workplace, I'm going to treat you the way I want to be treated. And when you do that and you respect people and you have an attitude of gratitude, whether it's with your employees or customers, it builds momentum and they desire to do the right things to help the company grow. When we sold GIACT, we had 99.9%. And I'm not talking about a fluffed up retention, actual retention of all of our customers. We didn't lose customers. And why that was is because we took care of our employees and we did the right things by them, which drove them to take care of our customers. When we sold the company 16 years later to London Stock Exchange for $610 million, we had all of our original employees. But there were some principles we operated with from day one. We paid all their health insurance benefits. So they had Club Med, trust me, CEO insurance benefits for them and their family. They paid nothing because we felt like that medical care wasn't something that was optional. It was something they deserved and should receive as an employee sitting within our building.
Hmm.
We gave them time off if their kids had programs, or if they in Texas it's a big deal to go to send kids to camp for a week. We're like, hey, take the week off, we'll pay you, go be with your children. Like, that's an investment you need to make. So we encouraged our employees to be involved with their family and be there for those special moments. And what happened is they were then willing to come back and give us their best when they were in our building because we gave them our best. We showed them respect. We had a great 401k plan. We met a dollar for dollar up to 4%. We gave them great bonuses. We gave them Christmas bonuses. We celebrated moments that happened throughout the company, and it just bred an environment of driving people to excellence. And some of the greatest people in our building that helped us sell that company for a monumental amount when we started with $300 had never been a leader before. In fact, they just came out of college. But I think, GIACT just really raised up some exceptional people through that process. And it was driven off the principle of, don't expect anything. You owe those people your life. When they walk through the door and they give you everything they've got, in return, you show them gratitude and you reward them for their effort. And, that's why GIACT was such an amazing story, because it was built off of that principle.
The platform focuses on customer experience. Is that right?
Customer and employee experience.
Hmm. And you're selling into like across industries?
Absolutely. So our primary focus is really financial services and government, healthcare, and retail, but we have customers across many different verticals because the product works, is so effective. We have, transportation like airlines and car manufacturing companies. We have a lot of different verticals that we haven't focused on, but because of the success that we've had, it's driven the need for that. And so, but our primary focuses are in those four verticals.
And which feature is it that's usually the catalyst for a company buying your platform?
That's a really good question. I'll tell you, it's changed since we took over the company. One of the things that I hear, and I go to trade shows, Gardner, Forrester, TSI, it doesn't matter where, the reason why most of these companies have not been successful is knowledge. They've started out and their knowledge is not, it's siloed all over the place. It's in manuals, it's in people's heads. I know that sounds crazy, but I can't
Yeah.
tell you how many companies come and say, we're getting ready to lose 60 engineers and half their information is not written down. We're in trouble.
Hmm.
And so we've actually given them the capability to be able to record and then feed that into a knowledge base, right? So there's a lot of places where data is. Also, companies, they'll go out and buy other companies, or they have different departments and it's all over the place. It's in different data warehouses. And so helping companies bring that together, orchestrate it, tag it, do all the things that's important is really critical. The problem is a lot of these, what I would call original companies, and we've been around for 16 plus years, so we're one of them. But a lot of these, older companies, they just did not focus on that. And so these companies that have failed, that have rolled out solutions, it doesn't work accurately. You get wrong answers, and it doesn't understand like what you're asking. A good example of that is American Airline. I don't know if you fly American, but I like to say every time I try to use their chatbot, I learn a few new cuss words. It is absolutely ridiculous. The other
Yeah.
day I asked it, how do you rebook a war ticket? And it was telling me how to take a dog on an airline. So they don't even understand what you're asking, which is such a prime example.
Hmm.
Again, that's why this has failed. And so we like to say that conversational AI doesn't work anymore. It's a new conversation that has to happen. And that's what we're focusing on at Encore is, being able to not only get the data right and accessible, but also then being able to understand what that customer is asking and having a conversation in a way that, people want to communicate, whether it's voice or whether it's text, whether it's done through a search, meeting that customer where they want to be met and what channel they want to be met on,
Hmm.
and then being able to drive that success. And so everything we have done is, again, promoting that human-like interaction and ease so that the customer feels cared for, whether it's an employee or an actual customer.
Hmm. Was your prior company, was it also kind of tech focused? And so this transition was a fairly smooth transition?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have been doing machine learning for 15 plus years in the fraud and risk space. So this is really an extension. And so when people, I kind of get tickled around, they're like, "Oh, AI's been around." I'm like, "No, AI's been around for a long time."
Hmm.
And so people like to think it's only been around, since ChatGPT came to the market. But AI has been around for a long time. So even though it is not in the fraud and risk space, it's really an extension of what we were already doing,
Hmm.
is solving customers' problems, making the transaction easy, making fraud and risk easy, taking all the friction out. So that way businesses can make decisions on a transaction in real time so that they wouldn't lose a customer or turn good business away, because there's billions of dollars that was being lost every year based on friction that was being caused by fraud and risk. And so that's how GIACT really became the company it was is because we took that friction away. And so taking that same concept and all the things we learned through machine learning and AI through all those years and really just applying it to a new industry. Of course,
Mm.
there's new things you got to learn, but again, it's them same principles that really apply in this industry also.